Welcome back to the Golden State with Mates post-game live after the Warriors claim a 99-88 surprise, you'd have to say, game one victory over the Minnesota Timberwolves at Target Center on Tuesday night. It feels like it's obviously great to win, but it feels like the Warriors won the battle, but their ability to win the war at the end of the day is going to be severely impacted by, of course, the first half injury to Stephen Curry, who has a hamstring strain, and that obviously puts a huge dampener on this victory. To start off on the positive, like, that is a great win. That is a flat out fantastic win for this group. Yeah, they were up nearly double digits or whatever when Steph left, but to then build on the lead, be up by 20 by the end of the third quarter. And yes, Minnesota made a bit of a run to start the fourth, got back within 9 on a couple of occasions. But for the team to play the way they did after Steph went out, just a huge win. Great win. Full credit to Buddy Hield, who was huge again. Oh my goodness. After his game 7 heroics, continued that in the second half. Jimmy, I thought, could have done a little bit more scoring-wise himself and looking for his own shot, but made the right plays. Nearly had a triple-double. Draymond, I thought, obviously in the first half was huge with 4 threes, and then defensively was just part and the leader of a Golden State defensive group that was just tremendous. Now, you got to wonder whether that's sustainable across the course of a series. I don't think it is. I think there's a lot of things that happened in this game where you just like, well, the Warriors kind of are getting some pretty generous things here, and Minnesota are missing a bunch of shots. And what I mean by that, when I say generous things, I don't mean the refereeing. I don't think the refereeing had any impact in the game whatsoever. But like Pat Spencer entering the ball game and then making a running Kareem skyhook off glass, Jonathan Kuminga making like a moving corner 3 there in the fourth quarter where the Warriors had no offense going. Other than that, like, there was just some stuff like Draymond making 4 first half threes, Buddy going for 22 points in the second half, albeit we saw him go for 33 in game 7 on Sunday. But there's just a lot of things about that game that I think are fairly unsustainable from a Warrior perspective. The one thing you would say is sustainable is the defense, no doubt about that. And they limited Minnesota to 39.5% shooting from the floor. They were, 17.2%, 5 of 29 from distance. They didn't make a three-pointer until the second half, but he had as many threes, 5, as Minnesota did as a team. So, look, a great win, don't get me wrong, but obviously without Steph moving forward, it feels like that, again, you've won the battle, but can you win the war now? And I have I'm not a doctor, don't get me wrong, but I don't know how Steph, if it's any kind of even a mild strain, I don't know how he can return in this series, to be honest, because I know like hamstring strains are probably the most common injury that we get in Australia. You know, guys playing Australian rules football, right? Very common injury, but it's really usually in AFL terms, you know, we just play once a weekend, but in AFL terms, like it's 2 to 3 weeks out as a minimum. And even if you say like, okay, well, it's the playoffs, Steph's going to play through and obviously come back a bit quicker than what he otherwise would in the regular season. Like, to me, any kind of hamstring strain, that's already 2 or 3 weeks out of a minimum during the regular season. Even if you want to cut that down a little bit to a week, 10 days in the playoffs, like, that's still quite a few games of this series. And at best, you might see Steph back for the end of like game 6, maybe game 5 or 6 might be the best case scenario. And then the Warriors are probably going to have to try and maybe he comes back for game 5 and the series is 2-2, and that's the best case scenario for the Warriors. I don't know. Obviously, a huge positive is the fact they were able to win this game for starters. Like, if they'd lost this game and Steph was injured, then I'd probably be sitting here saying the series is over, right? But the fact they were able to win this game, it basically means Steph will automatically miss game 2. And that's almost like a free hit for the Warriors. It's actually, I don't know. You can go into game 2, I think, feeling like you're playing with house money a little bit and basically going in there and say, well, we've already stole one on the road where without our best player, we can kind of just play freely and without pressure here. And the pressure is going to be on Minnesota in game 2. Like, they're going to go in there thinking, hey, we're down 1-0. We desperately need to win this game anyway, let alone Steph's out. So we absolutely should win the game. So the fact the Warriors were able to take this game, obviously a huge thing. But Steve said after the game that it's, you know, he'll get an MRI tomorrow. It's day to day. I don't think it's going to be day to day. Let's be honest. It's going to be at least missing. I mean, he's going to miss game two. Even if it's an absolute minor hamstring strain, he's definitely missing game two. There's just no way you'd risk him after you just took game one and you've already kind of got home court advantage now after that victory. So I don't know. We'll wait and see. The bigger takeaway from Steve, I think, was the fact that he said Steph was crushed about the injury. To me, that sort of shows the severity of it, I think, in comparison to just labeling him day to day. Like, that's just Steve saying saying something without obviously, an MRI having been taken place, obviously, and just the standard kind of response. So I don't know. We'll wait and see. It's very, very disappointing, and again, puts a dampener on how good the Warriors actually played in this game and how impressive a victory that was. I thought after Game 7, coming off the kind of emotional high of that, just the fact that they've had so little rest and all the travel from Game 7, to 48 hours later in this Game 1, I didn't expect them to come out and win. In saying that, they kind of followed the path of what teams have been doing to start off this second round series. This is the first time in NBA history where all four road teams have won game one in the second round, which is truly incredible after obviously the Pacers beat the Cavs and now have won game two against the Cavs as well on that incredible shot from Tyrese Halliburton at the end. And then, of course, the Knicks coming from 20 points down to beat the Celtics yesterday. And also basically the same with the Nuggets coming back to beat the Thunder. We've had a great start to this second round series with some truly remarkable performances and end of game scenarios. So it's been absolutely fun to watch, no doubt. But this Steph injury certainly puts a bit of tarnish on it, unfortunately, from a Warriors standpoint and an NBA standpoint. Because I'm sure the Timberwolves, I'm sure Anthony Edwards, I've already been speaking to a mate of mine who's a Timberwolves fan, and he said that, he wants Ant to be able to take down the best, and he wants, if the Timberwolves are going to win this series, he wants Steph Curry out on the floor. He does not want for the Timberwolves to win with Steph Curry sitting on the sidelines not having an impact, because that just takes away from Anthony Edwards, the status he's trying to build in the league. It takes away from Minnesota and what, people outside the organization obviously think of them. At the end of the day, it's all about winning, but you want to see the best players on the floor. There's no doubt about that. And so I think there's even some Timberwolves fans that are disappointed with the fact that Steph's out of this series and not now being able to go up against the very best, albeit they've still got some work to do regardless, finding themselves down 1-0. Alrighty, let's get into some comments from you guys here. Double and March says Warriors win, Steph not necessary. Well, he wasn't not necessary in this game, but I mean, he kind of was. He played well to start. I feel, even the start of that game, I feel pretty optimistic about this series before Steph's injury, just because the Minnesota defense can be very good, but it's not Houston like right up in your grill, grabbing Steph every opportunity they get. Like, Steph got some looks in this game. He had 13 points in 13 minutes before he went off. He was 5 of 9, 3 of 6. So he started the game really well. And Jaden McDaniels is a very good defender. But again, I don't think they're necessarily going all out and trying to do so much illegal stuff to Steph like the Rockets were, to be totally honest. So that kind of makes me feel good about this series. Obviously, the Warriors had a good record against the Timberwolves during the regular season. Of course, that came before the Jimmy Butler trade and really before Minnesota, or both teams, got on a roll, I suppose, over the second half of the season. Logan says, Buddy Hield, wow. Looney, amazing as well. Logan says, Buddy Hield is proving me and everyone wrong. Wow, lol. What a time to step up. What a time. And I wrote about it, actually. I might have spoken about it after the Game 7. Like, if Buddy Hield had another mediocre performance in Game 7 and the Warriors had lost that and were eliminated, I would have already been started talking about Buddy Hield as a potential trade candidate in the offseason. So that just goes to show you, I think, how quickly things can change. And even if, he struggles a bit here over the remainder of the series and the Warriors don't, advance through to the conference finals, I think he's shown his value, particularly with his three-point shooting on a roster that, lacks it otherwise outside of him and Steph. So regardless of what happens for Buddy Hield in the rest of his career, let alone the next year or two, he'll always have that Game 7 on the road in Houston and coming up with a huge 33-point performance. Now, to back that up, full credit to him. Full credit, because he's a guy that has drawn so much frustration from fans over the course of the season, and I think rightly so. But these are two of the best performances of his season in back-to-back games in the playoffs. And for a guy that actually really lacks playoff experience, it's been huge from him. Then next says road teams 5-0. We just need to steal a game in Minnesota. Asked, does Jimmy look healthy to you? I think he looks good enough. Yeah, I think Jimmy looks good enough. Look, he'd still be dealing with that pelvic contusion every time he goes down. You kind of, you wince a bit and think, geez, hope he gets up okay from that. But I think he looks okay. If it wasn't for the Steph injury, then I'd go, if Steph and Jimmy were fully healthy in this series, or Jimmy was like he is right now, then I think there's no excuses to lose this series. I think you're a genuine chance of winning. I don't think this is necessarily, Jimmy's injury is a huge factor in terms of being a series defining factor. Now, Steph's injury is now, clearly different. I think that's got a real chance to be a series defining injury that we actually look back on. If Minnesota were to go on and win this series, I think, you look back at the Steph injury and say, okay, that's why Minnesota won. As we kind of, as Warrior fans, we kind of do in 2019 when the Raptors beat us, and we look back at the KD and Clay injuries and we think, well, if KD was healthy in that series, I think Golden State just win. I think if, Steph didn't have this injury and the Warriors went on to lose, I think none of us would be looking at that and saying, oh, Jimmy Butler was playing at 50% and that's why the Warriors lost. I think Jimmy looks good enough to me, and he wasn't efficient in this game, but at the end of the day, he had 22 points, 11 rebounds. 20 points, 11 rebounds, 8 assists, 2 steals. Came up with some big buckets when the Warriors needed it. Again, was getting criticized a little bit, and I think probably rightly so, for not looking for his own shot necessarily. But, as we've seen since he arrived with the Warriors, he wants to make the right plays. He wants to get his teammates involved. And between him and Jimmy, the Warriors had, just enough offense in the second half. Knox says, I love it when the Warriors prove me wrong. Tired basketball fan says, hard to tell with him if he's being passive for a reason or just because he feels like it. It's a good point. Knox says, Buddy finally woke up since last game. Hopefully he can keep it up. Tired basketball fan says, if Buddy plays good defense, the Warriors have found themselves another guy that can kind of play without being a complete liability on one end. It's incredible to me how, if Buddy Hield's got it rolling offensively and he makes a couple of shots, he's just automatically a far better defender. Like, it's just like he feels more invigorated, more engaged. Therefore, he's just going to try a lot harder on defense. I remember talking about it. I legit remember talking about it in the first 10 games of the season when he was on fire offensively. And it's like, well, he's on fire offensively, but he's also making impact defensively, and he's also making impact rebounding. Like, he had 8 rebounds in this game, I think, didn't he? Yeah, 4 offensive, 4 defensive rebounds. He was a game high plus 22 to go with his game high 24 points. And it just feels to me like when he's got it rolling offensively, he actually can provide an impact in other areas. It's when he's struggling offensively that he just becomes a complete liability, because then you're getting nothing out of him defensively either. It's funny how it rolls. Like, confidence is a wonderful thing in sport, in life in general. Like, you start feeling good about yourself in one thing, then all of a sudden you start feeling better about yourself and you start putting effort into other things as well. And I think that's showing up in Buddy's two-way impact so far over the last 2 games at least. Lon the Third says, great opportunity for the other guys to put their fingerprints on this game and series. Steve Kerr went to 12 guys in this game and nearly went to 13, because there was a time there, the end of the third quarter, Braxton Key was going to see some action for the final defensive possession, but he went to 12 guys. Pat Spencer 11 minutes and wasn't a liability. Like, I'm not going to love the Pat Spencer minutes moving forward, but he kind of showed in that kind of garbage time against the Rockets in, what was that, game 5 on the road? Yeah. Kind of showed then, and then he got ejected. He showed that he's not going to be afraid at the moment. And I think that's probably the most important thing with Pat Spencer is he actually looks pretty composed out there. He looks like he belongs now. Are the minutes going to be great necessarily? No, I think he's still somewhat limited as an NBA player. But again, he looks composed and he looks like he belongs out there. And that's more than I can say for a guy like Moses Moody. Can we talk about him as like maybe the biggest negative of this game? His first half minutes were just an absolute disaster. And in the end, he saw brief minutes in the second half, but he played 8.5 minutes total for the game with 0 of 4, 0 of 1 from 3, minus 14 for Moses Moody. It looks like to me he's just lost all confidence. He has lost all confidence in his shot. all confidence in his decision making. There was one where he's just dribbling the ball against Ant and then just like let the shot clock run out without even getting a shot up. And it's like, man, what are you doing? What are you actually doing? He's almost becoming unplayable. And you know what? Like Kaminga's not doing anything well, but it's almost like I'd rather Kaminga out there instead of Moody. And that's what Steve's decided. Like Kaminga played 13 minutes in this game, which again isn't much. Was Kaminga great? No, he was a -9 in his 13 minutes. But feels like he's almost gone past Moody now. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with the rotation moving forward. But Moody feels like he just shouldn't be out there. Like he's almost unplayable. Looney, going back to someone mentioned Loon before. I want to give full credit to Loon, man. I thought his minutes in Game 7 were huge. I thought he only played 11 minutes, but as Bill Simmons said on his podcast, felt like 25, like it was allowed 11 minutes from Kevon Looney. This game, he only plays 14, but when Draymond picked up his 5th foul, the Timberwolves cut it to 9. Draymond had to go out of the game, and you thought, all right, here's some problems. Like a bit of anxiousness among the fan base, no doubt. I was feeling some anxiety. I was like, okay, Naz Reid's hitting some shots. Ant's starting to get going a little bit, making a few shots at the rim. Draymond's gone out now. We're in some trouble. And Loon just came in and just provided what he does, like that steady veteran presence, really solid, like nothing spectacular. It's Kevon Looney, nothing spectacular, but just really rock solid play on both ends of the floor. A couple of massive offensive rebounds. He had 6 boards in this game, 2 offensive, and I think both of those were in the fourth quarter. Gobert tried him at the rim one time, and Looney was just there like, what are you doing, bro? Like I don't think he even hit rim on his attempt. So just massive minutes in the fourth quarter from Kevon Looney after big minutes in Game 7 as well. So credit to him. Tire Basketball Fan says absolutely fantastic win if Steph can come back. If not, it's tricky. It's very tricky if he doesn't come back, which again, I don't know. I think best case scenario might be Game 5 here. And again, that's just me going off what I just think of a general hamstring right now. Not to talk about my own, I've never strained a hamstring, I don't think. I may have. Remember the last game of Australian rules football I played in under 18s, playing for my local club, and I did something to my hamstring during the week, and it didn't feel good, but it was the last game of the season. It was my last game of under 18s, and I was like to the coach, there's no way I'm missing. Like, again, if it was if it was 5 weeks earlier, I would have missed the game, no doubt. But I said to my coach, look, it's the last game. I want to play. Last game I played with these group of boys. I want to play. So I played, started the game, felt okay in the warm-up, and then within 30 seconds, I was like, oh, man, I am struggling big time. And again, I don't know if it was a real strain because I played the game, so it was maybe just some tightness or something like that. But I remember my old man coming up to me after the game. He said, are you okay? And I said, nah, my hamstring's not great. And he said, yeah, I could tell you were probably running and jumping at maybe 50%, if that. So, and that was not even a strain. So to me, it's just like, it's a couple of games off here at least. And even when he does come back, I'd be surprised if Steph's, upwards of 60, 70%. But obviously if he can get out there, that's probably a major boost just with the spacing and gravity that he generates anyway. Berserkmonk says, honestly, if Steph didn't get injured, this would have been a blowout win. The Wolves had 0 answers for Steph. Jay Prum says, Dubs needed this one. Absolutely. Berserkmonk says, at least needs to sit 2 games. Game 4 earliest return, in my opinion. We'll wait and see. I'm sure we'll hear more in the next 24 hours. Daniel says, is it pessimistic to say this season is already a success? I would rather have a chance at more prime Curry seasons than rush him back and have his hamstring be permanently cooked. Can you permanently cook your hamstring? I suppose you can get recurring ones. Yeah, absolutely. So maybe, but I think if Steph can come back and at least give it a go, like you've got an entire off season. It's not like a hamstring. Now, can hamstring injuries persist and be an ongoing problem? Yeah, sure. But it's not as if it's an ACL or an Achilles where you do the injury and you're out for 12 months automatically. Like, even if he comes back, gives it a crack and like does it even worse, then you still got a whole off season to recover from that and make sure it's right to go by game 1 next season. So, yep, there could be long-term problems in terms of, recurring strains and whatever else. Again, I'm not trying to pretend to be a doctor or whatever else, but I think if Steph can give it a go, he's gonna try and give it a go. He's not just gonna say, well, you know what, like this. All right, I'm back. I apologize for that. I don't know if I went frozen or not. It just said that my internet was being unstable. Anyway, one thing I will say about obviously talking about the Rockets fans claiming their defense is the reason for the Steph injury and whatnot. I don't think it's the Rockets defense as such. I just think it's the amount of basketball Steph's had to play and the high intensity basketball that Steph's had to play across the course of probably 3 months now. Like the Warriors were the 11th seed in the Western Conference in early February, and they've basically had to play playoff level basketball since that period just in order to make the playoffs, right? And the fact that they now find themselves as one of the final four teams in the Western Conference is an outstanding result. But they've had to put a lot of work in to even just reach this position. You think about how hard they had to play to close the regular season. You think about how the fact they had to go play the playing game against the Grizzlies. They go to 7 games against the Rockets. Steph plays 45 and a half minutes in that game 2 days ago. It's just a build up, and that's what I think this is. Like this hamstring strain is just a build up of all the miles, all the minutes that the Warriors have had to put on Steph Curry throughout the last few months, and they haven't been afforded the opportunity to be able to rest guys, and rest Steph for big minutes, either in game or giving him, a few games off here and there to be able to preserve himself. So, unfortunately, I think it's just an accumulation of that. And it's kind of what you face sometimes when you put yourself in a predicament where you've got to play so hard for so long in order to be able to get to this position. And again, credit to the Warriors for getting to this position. They're now 1-0 up in a second round series. I don't think many of us would have thought that was possible 3 months ago. But obviously they've got some serious problems now with Steph's hamstring injury. Just Blow says, I said after game 4, we wanted the Wolves. I think this game might have just showed. Sorry, that was Just Blow. Daniel says, I think this game might have just showed how bad the Lakers were. Big frauds made the Wolves look a lot better. I don't know. I think I want to see more than one game in a series. And again, I think Minnesota couldn't have played much worse in this game. Now, the Warriors could have played a little bit better. If you look at the Warriors shooting percentages, I mean, we made 18 to 42 threes at 42.9%, which is excellent, but we were less than 40%, 39.1% from the field. So I think the Warriors could play a bit better offensively, but Minnesota, I mean, are they going to play that badly again offensively? Now, I think if the Warriors had done this to the Rockets, and they did on a few occasions, you'd say, oh, well, this is sustainable and they can win the series like this because Houston just don't have a go-to scorer and their offense generally in the half court is really bad. Minnesota, they get kept to under 90 points in this game. But again, I'm not sure if that's sustainable when you've got a legitimate superstar in Anthony Edwards, who's horrible in this game. 9 of 22. Didn't make a jump. Well, he did make one late in the fourth quarter. He was 1 of 5 from deep. Aside from that, didn't even hit a jump shot, really. It was just all at the rim. Had 14 rebounds. Cool. But really, this is one of his worst games, you'd say. So we're going to get that again. I don't think so necessarily. Randall was an absolute non-factor. Maybe that is sustainable for the Warriors moving forward because Randall does have a bit of a history of kind of going missing or being a negative for his team for stretches. Conley 0 of 5. DiVincenzo 3 of 11, 1 of 7. Now, he shot the ball really poorly against the Lakers, so maybe that's just a continuation of that, but you'd think he would lift his production at some point. Naz Reid was good for them, I suppose, off the bench. He's a noted Warrior killer. That'll probably continue. McDaniels was 0 of 3 from three-point range. So, I'm not sure this is sustainable from a Warriors perspective without Steph. Well, I think with Steph, they could absolutely win this series. Without him, I would still, sit here as a Warrior fan and say Minnesota are still favorites to win the series based on this Steph injury, even though even after what we just saw in game 1. So, Thendex says, do you think Pat should play more? Well, he's going to if Steph's out. He's going to. And again, is he great? No, but he had 4 points in 4 points and a couple of rebounds, a couple of steals, tries on both ends of the floor. There's no real jump shot there. It's really around the rim. He has that sky hook that he likes to go to a little bit. So, I don't think it's going to be great, but at the same time, I don't think he's a major liability. Like some guys are just out there, like Moody in the first half, look like a genuine liability. Like he's flat out unplayable. I'm not sure Pat Spencer's unplayable. It's one of those things where Steve would be like, well, I don't want to have him out there because I want to have Steph Curry, but I guess he's okay as a backup option, and this is what he's there for at the end of the day. For if Steph gets injured or Pods or something like that. Robert says, I want to be happy, but Steph is injured. Mixed feelings, absolutely. Empire says, we're going to need Pods to score more if we're going to win without Steph. Pods in this game, 1 of 7, 1 of 5. This comes after he was, what was he in game 7? 1 of 7 from deep in game 7 against the Rockets. So, look, he had 8 rebounds, 3 assists. Wasn't great. Wasn't great. He's a -1 in the game. Hopefully it's a case of, well, we're not going to expect these Buddy Hield performances necessarily moving forward, but Pods is probably someone who can pick up the slack a little bit as maybe Buddy cools off a little bit. Robert says, Buddy hypnotized himself as prime Clay. Also says that's why I'm really shocked if Warriors fans want to trade Looney. Well, Looney's a free agent in the offseason. I'd love to bring him back on a minimum. Not sure how much he's worth beyond that. Like, we're talking about him he's been really, really good over the last 2 games. But in saying that, he's still only played 25 minutes. So it's not like this guy's playing 25, 30 minutes and doing kind of what he did against the Kings in the playoffs a couple of years back. FTW Clan says, I think best case is Curry comes back game 5 and it's 2-2. I tend to agree with that. Ty Basketball Fan says Looney was an expiring contract that could have been turned into a higher level player maybe, but I don't think anyone who's a Warrior fan doesn't like him. He's a 3-time champion. Like, everyone loves Loon. It's just, could you find better, right? And I even said during that Rockets series, like, if you could turn Loon into Steven Adams, I think that'd be a fairly big win. In saying that, like, I've got nothing against trying to bring Loon back on a minimum contract in free agency. Like, do I think he's worth more than that? Probably at this stage of his career, and in terms of the luxury tax aprons and stuff like that now in the league, like, I don't think he's worth more than that. And I'd be surprised if another team offers him more than that. And therefore, if the Warriors are willing to match at least whatever another team is, and I just don't think another team's going to offer more than the minimum. I could see him definitely coming back to Golden State on a minimum deal. FTW Clan says there's 3 days between games 5 and 6, though. So if we can survive until then, Curry could get good recovery time. Yeah, but, like, do you want to bring him back for an elimination game? What if the Warriors are down 2-3 at that point? If you're up 3-2, absolutely, that'd be great. But I suppose, like, anything's possible. Anything. And I think if you could try and get to 2-2, that'd be great. And who knows what happens in game 2? Again, as I said before, like, I think the pressure is going to be substantially on Minnesota in game 2 because they've already lost one at home and because Steph's presumably going to be out and therefore they should be absolutely expected to win. So we'll wait and see. But I think 2-2 would probably be a good scenario if Steph's going to be out until about that point, game 5 or so. Ty Basketball Fan says, can't help thinking about Tyrese Halliburton not being the same for like a year after returning from hamstring injury. It was clearly a more serious one, but still scary. Very good point. Credit to Hallie, though, and what he's doing so far in these playoffs, man. Huge play at the end of that Cavs game 2 today. Daniel says, James Harden after his hamstring injury and Chris Paul's hamstring injury come to mind. Might be overreacting, but hearing he felt crushed is worrying. Agree with that. Robert says 7 games against constant hugging from the Rockets defense. Empire says Pods, Pat, Buddy, Jimmy, Green, Looney starting lineup. I don't think Pat Spencer will be starting. I don't know if he can still. I don't know. Part of the reason Looney's minutes are so low is because I still think Steve thinks he can't play him and Dre together, and therefore he's really just on the floor when Dre's off, and Dre's going to be playing 35 minutes. So that leaves basically 13, max 14 minutes, which we saw today from Loon. I think moving forward, it might be a case of continuing with GP2. Just because GP2 has historically been pretty good against Ant. I tweeted it out. I also wrote about it. Over the last 2 seasons before this series, Ant had shot 8 of 21 from the floor when guarded by GP2. Now, I'm not sure how much GP2 had. I don't think he was a huge factor in Ant shooting 9 of 22 in this game. But I think it's certainly something where you look at that matchup and think GP2's historically been pretty good. So maybe we we remain with that and go with GP2 in the starting lineup just to ensure Ant doesn't get off to a hot start. Because the last thing you want to do is Ant gets off to a blistering hot start, finds his rhythm, finds his momentum, and then you try and bring GP2 in at a point where he's already off the hook and he's already firing. So I think it'd be a case of, all right, let's really lean defense without Steph. Like, that's what you're going to have to do. You're just going to have to really, really lean defense, have another game like this where Minnesota are kept to under 90 points. And GP2 is going to be a big part of that as, the primary guy guarding Ant. Tire Basketball fan says GP2 passed up some shots, but definitely knocked down 2 open ones. Look more ready to shoot than anyone on the Wolves. Arminia says time to activate Armstrong from the G League. Can't happen, unfortunately, on a 2-way contract. Mr. MRA Space says Pods got shut down by Dante. He's going to have to be better. Empire says, I might be wrong, but it seems like something is wrong with Butler. Well, I think he's clearly not 100%. He had that hard fall in game 2 and the glute contusion. Like, he's clearly not 100%, but I think he's good enough. And I think part of it today, in terms of, him not necessarily looking for his own shot, was just him being a little bit passive and giving up what the defense was giving him. And part of this is like when he drives, Rudy's not guarding Draymond and he's not guarding, or guarding Loon, whoever's out there. So Rudy's just there in the paint. You saw a couple of times in that fourth quarter where Jimmy drives and then Rudy's right there. And his only option is to kick it back out to Loon at the top of the perimeter. And and you just got to have to go into another set from there, right? So I think some of this stuff is Jimmy gets to the paint, sees Gobert, and that's a deterrence. And that's who Rudy Gobert is, right? And so I think that's why, some of you guys are saying, well, Jimmy doesn't look 100%. I think he's good enough. And I think part of the playmaking stuff today was more so just giving what the defense gave him, which was, him drawing a couple of guys, kicking out to open shooters. And, again, not efficient, 7 of 20 from the floor, but still a productive game and a positive game from him nonetheless. Daniel says, did I miss us talking about Draymond? 18 points, 8 boards, 6 assists on 4 threes. I'd mentioned him briefly, in the first, a little bit earlier in terms of his first half, 4 threes, just massive. And that almost proves the difference. Like, the Warriors go up 13 at halftime and then just preserve the lead from that point on. And so his first half, knocking down some triples, he took 10 threes in this game, which, again, I'm not sure that's overly sustainable. I don't think that's necessarily what the Warriors want, but I thought he was massive. I thought defensively he set the tone, particularly with his help defenses being there on some of those Ant drives where Ant, gets a step on the guy guarding him out in the perimeter, but Draymond's there to contest. And Ant didn't get it going with his jump shot at all, but he also missed quite a few shots at the rim where you'd expect him to make. And I think Draymond was a presence there. So I've been super impressed with Draymond the last 2 games. I thought his first 6 games against the Rockets weren't great necessarily. But I think these last 2 games, similar to Buddy Hield, he's really come alive. And I think the most important thing is he's playing with composure, right? How many times did you see him? Did he get a flagrant in this game? No. Did he get a T in this game? No. And I think that's going to be super important moving forward, because if he kind of straddles the line a little bit and picks up a T or a flagrant, then he's really under a bit of pressure in terms of potentially missing a game due to that and getting suspended for a game in these playoffs. And without Steph, the Warriors just can't afford to not have Steph and Draymond on the floor. So it's going to be super, super pivotal moving forward, his ability to stay composed and still playing with huge, high intensity, no doubt, because that's when he plays his best, but not going over the line. I think he's done really well with that in the last 2 games. FTW Clan says, sorry, missed a few here. Mr. MRA Space, Van Gundy is a blithering, horrible announcer like his brother. Tire Basketball fan says, it was funny when the Warriors missed 3 good shots in a row, and he was going on about what great defense the Wolves played. That was in the fourth quarter, wasn't it? And it was kind of oh, well, they're open shots, but they're going to the guys that Minnesota want to take the open shots. And I think he's probably right on that. But anyway, I don't really take too much notice of the announcers, to be honest. FTW Clan says Jimmy did get both assists to GP2 on Buddy late threes that closed the game. That little stretch there when Looney came on the floor, got a couple of stops, and then Jimmy found Buddy for the 3 that put the lead from 9 to 12, and you thought, okay, big bucket. And then Jimmy came down and made a little floating mid-range shot the next possession, pushed it out to 14, forced Finch into a timeout. And you're like, that made me feel comfortable. I was like, okay, it was single digits. We just get a couple of quick buckets there, push it back to 14. Yeah, there's still 5 minutes to go in the game, but I felt fairly comfortable from that point. If Ty Basketball fans says, I get Jimmy playmaking, but he passed on some that he has to take. No one there, and he's not looking at the rim. Borderline Draymond behavior. Well, it's a positive, I suppose. If people are complaining a little bit about Jimmy's play, and the Warriors are still able to pull out a double-digit win on the road without Steph, Jimmy's going to have to be better, right? He's going to there's going to be no Steph. He's going to have to take over, and that's, I suppose, the one great thing about trading for Jimmy Butler, right, is that, okay, Steph's out. Warriors might be cooked, but maybe also they've still got a chance simply because they've got Jimmy Butler. They've got that second offensive superstar who you can throw the ball in their hands to make plays and get buckets. So fingers crossed he can make that happen over the next few games. Arminius says, still waiting for playoff Jimmy game 2. Maybe Buddy and Jimmy going ballistic in game 2 would be epic. I think we've seen it. I think we've seen playoff Jimmy. We saw it, I suppose, in that from basically the regular season finale against the Clippers, where he was huge in that game, even though the Warriors lost. I'm just going to have a look at his numbers here, and then what he's done over. Since he's returned from that injury. I'm not sure how much you can necessarily read into what he's done post the injury, because, again, I don't think he's 100%, but I think he's good enough where he could take over some games in this series moving forward. So since the penultimate game of the regular season against the Blazers, he had 24, 5, and 7. Since then, he's gone 30 and 9 assists. 25, 7, 6, and 5 steals in game 1 against the Rockets. Comes back for game 3, has 27, 5, and 6. Horrible in game 5. Sorry, that was game 4. I was when he came back for game 4. Missed game 3, obviously. Game 5, horrible, as everyone was. Game 6, 27, 9, and 8 in a loss. And then game 7, 28 and 7. And then today, 20, 11, and 8. So let's not I suppose he's yet to have a 30-point game in these playoffs, and that's what you might define playoff Jimmy as, but he's still playing well, let's be honest. Daniel says, I don't think we need game 4 Bucks Heat Jimmy Butler, but we need more than he's giving at the moment if we want to steal another game without Steph. Yeah, I think I agree with that. Ty Basketball fan says, tease and flagrants are a problem because after you reach the limit, the count doesn't start again. It's way more frequent. Yeah, you basically miss a game for every one you get after that. So that's a problem. Robert says, if Warriors go 3-0, Timberwolves might fire their coach right away. Ty Basketball fan says, was there anyone in the lineup that didn't want to take a shot other than Buddy? Was there anyone in the lineup they didn't want to take a shot other than Buddy? As in the Timberwolves? Anyway. Yeah, the Warrior offense is going to be interesting, obviously, without Steph. I think Steve went to Kuminga a little bit, thinking, okay, we need some offense. He had 7 points, had that actually kind of big 3 in the fourth, where he spot up in the corner. I really love the play where Draymond drove, kind of 2 guys went at him, and Kuminga cut to the rim, and Kuminga got a dunk out of it. That was a great play. It's something JK needs to do more of. Were his minutes great? No. Defensively, a couple of mistakes. Again, only the 1 rebound, which you'd like to see more of in 13 minutes, particularly when Minnesota are missing so much. But he's going to have to, all of a sudden you think, okay, well, if guys off the bench, Kuminga's probably above Moody, above sense. Like, Gee got a run for nearly 4 minutes in the first half and then wasn't seen again. And he's probably ahead of Post, and he's probably ahead. I mean, Spencer's going to play a bit, but you'd think Kuminga would still play more than Spencer. So all of a sudden, JK could suddenly be the 7th guy in the rotation again, even though he hasn't really done anything to warrant it. I think it's just probably out of need more than anything, because I think, he averaged the 3rd most points on the team in the regular season. He did that for a reason. And if all of a sudden you're without your leading scorer, then all of a sudden I think you need to find some sort of offense. And Kuminga, for all the things we're frustrated about, for the inefficiencies, for the turnovers, the defensive mistakes, the lack of rebounding and whatnot, he can put the ball in the bucket better than basically anyone else on this team, aside from obviously Steph and Jimmy. right? And maybe Buddy, I suppose, over these last couple of games. But I think you're going to need Kuminga a little bit. Daniel says Geese Sanders look a little scared to shoot. And Moody has just been in a bad slump. Yeah, I'm worried about the Moses stuff. Genuinely worried. Ty Basketball fans says it's Draymond, Pods, Jimmy, GP. They'll give them all a 3 happily. I think they'll give everyone a 3 happily aside from Steph and Buddy. I think that's what the Rockets decided. Look, Pods can shoot away. Draymond can shoot away. Jimmy can go for his life. Even like Post off the bench. Like, yeah, shot 41% in the regular season, but you're a rookie center. Very little experience. We're probably going to live with that. So Kuminga the same. Empire says, I'm not trying to hate on JK, but he really needs to work on his handles. I feel like we've been saying that for years, to be honest, because he just gets strict. It's not only his handles, but it's actually just his ball security when he's driving to the rim. Like way too many times, it's just far too easy for a defender to get a hand in, and then all of a sudden he's lost the ball out of bounds, and it's usually off him, off his leg, or he just throws the ball away. Like, I don't know. It's just his ball security in general. Ty Basketball fan says JK did make some plays. If they can get even one game from him, it'll be huge. If they don't play him, then there's no chance. Daniel says, I agree, JK is going to need to play, but man, does he look checked out? Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure about the checked out business. Look, I think there are a couple of things where you think to yourself, look, if a guy's checked out, then I just don't think he's making that cut to the rim where Draymond kind of drives baseline and then he flicks it back to him for a dunk. Like a checked out guy is sitting on the perimeter in that situation and just being like, okay, well, I'll catch the ball if you throw it to me. But other than that, I'm not actually looking to get into position to get the ball. Like he cut there. And again, that's some of the stuff where it frustrates you with JK is if he can just cut at the right times and make some of these moves to the rim, like he could get some far easier baskets. So that to me, like that doesn't appear to me like a guy that's checked out. He spot up in the corner for Jimmy. And if he wasn't in the corner on that play and he hit a big 3, but if he wasn't in the corner, that would have been a turnover. Like that was a bailout. Jimmy kind of picked up his dribble, was driving baseline, nearly went out of bounds on it. Like that's not to me a guy that's checked out necessarily. So I still have some, it's weird. I still have a little bit of faith that, hey, he could still provide something while Steph's out. Now, when Steph is in the game, I'm not sure, well, still, Steph's available. Like, I'm not sure how many minutes he's going to get, but I don't know, like you're running out of options otherwise. Like you're legit running out of guys you can play. Because again, I think Moody almost looks more unplayable right now. And, Pat Spencer, Gee, Post, like they're not going to play big minutes. So all of a sudden, if Steph's out, like you'd say Kuminga's probably the 6th guy in the rotation. Because it's like Jimmy, Draymond, Pods, Hield, Peyton, and then it's probably Kuminga as your 6th guy. Like he's just going to have to play. And Steve's just going to have to be like, well, I'm just going to have to lengthen the rope a little bit in terms of some of these mistakes where he turns the ball over a couple of times. He makes a defensive error. And usually I would say, all right, that's you done. Sit your backside back on the bench. But again, without Steph, you're just going to have to live through some of that. Simple as that. Empire says teams will never learn. Don't leave GP2 open in the corner. Well, he's actually starting to make them since the All-Star break. Like before then, he couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat, and teams were leaving him absolutely happily wide open, and fair enough. Since the All-Star break, his threes have actually been going a little bit, which is nice to see, and good for him, and obviously good for the Warriors. And what he made he gave up that M1 to Ant in the 4th, where I was like, man, what are you doing? Like he had a step on you, he had a lane to the rim, he had a layup. Cool. You're just gonna have to give that one up. And instead he just I suppose Ant probably tried to grab his hand a little bit as well. I don't know what happened, but it was just a dumb play from GP2. And then fortunately, after giving up the 3-point play, he came down the other end. I think Jimmy might have found him in the corner and he cashes the corner 3, which kind of made up for it. Daniel says he got his ball stolen first play of the 4th after having the quietest dunk I've seen. Also says if Steph is out, Kuminga has to play. True. Mr. MRA Space says, why no TJD? Well, you're just going to loon over him now, aren't you? And again, I think Loon's been Loon's been good here over the last 2 games. So simple as that. TJD just hasn't played enough over the last few months to be going to him for really any minutes. Tyler Basketball fan says GP also looks like he thinks he can make it, which wasn't the case in the first half of the season. Yep. I mean, some of these guys who are questionable 3-point shooters, confidence is such a big factor. So if he makes 1 or 2, it's confidence is big for anyone. You look at what Buddy's doing over the last couple of games. So yeah, if he can knock down an open corner 3 or whatever, and at least make the defense look at him on some of these 3-point attempts, then that's huge for the Warriors. I'm going to finish it up there, guys. Been going for over 46 minutes. Huge win for Golden State in game 1 against the Timberwolves. But unfortunately, the Steph Curry injury might be the biggest talking point out of it. We'll wait and see. I'm sure we'll get news in the next 24 hours or so. But for me personally, I'd be surprised if we see Steph over probably the next 3 games, to be honest. Maybe game 5 at best. But even then, I'm not sure he's going to be 100%. Hopefully, the Warriors can steal a game in Steph's absence, maybe steal 2 games in Steph's absence. We'll wait and see. But certainly a positive start from a game perspective in terms of the Warriors pulling out this victory and being so suffocating on the defensive side of the floor and keeping the Timberwolves to just 88 points. Thank you very much for your ongoing support. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, that'd be greatly appreciated. You can follow me at POC252. That's POK252 on X/Twitter. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, that would be greatly appreciated. Thanks again to those of you that have commented and otherwise, if you're watching this on replay or listening via your podcast feed, appreciate it as well. I'll see you guys after game 2. Fingers crossed the Warriors might be able to pull out an upset victory without Steph. We'll wait and see. That'll be on, Thursday, Friday, my time, Australian. So I hope to see you then. Thanks, guys.